What drives a person to deface a symbol of love and loss, etched in wood and memory, under the guise of righteousness? In the quiet suburban enclave of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and pristine parks whispered of order, one woman's actions would unravel a community's fragile peace. Karen Whitaker, a name that would soon be whispered with disdain, stood at the heart of a storm she'd ignited, one that would expose raw grief, hidden truths, and the cost of unchecked pride. Karen, a 48-year-old real estate agent with a penchant for control, was the self-appointed guardian of Willow Creek's Homeowners Association. Her days were spent policing mailbox colors, hedge heights, and the precise angle of holiday decorations. To her, the neighborhood was a canvas, and she wielded her authority like a paintbrush, ensuring every stroke aligned with her vision of perfection. But perfection, as Karen would learn, was a brittle facade. The trouble began on a crisp autumn morning, when the sun cast golden rays over the park at the heart of Willow Creek. At its center stood a simple wooden bench, its surface engraved with the words, "In loving memory of Captain Daniel Harper, forever our hero." The bench was a gift from Eleanor Harper, a soft-spoken widow whose husband had died in combat 5 years prior. Eleanor, now in her early 60s, visited the bench daily, her fingers tracing the carved letters as if they could summon Daniel back. To the community, the bench was a quiet testament to sacrifice and love. Karen, however, saw it differently. To her, the bench was an eyesore, its weathered wood and faded varnish clashing with the park's polished aesthetic. She'd long argued it needed replacing, citing HOA regulations about uniform maintenance. Her complaints, lodged at every meeting, were met with polite dismissals. The bench stayed, a stubborn relic of a community that valued heart over handbook. That morning, Karen stood before the bench, her arms crossed, a can of red spray paint tucked in her purse. She'd had enough. If the HOA wouldn't act, she would. Her plan was simple: deface the bench with garish graffiti, blame it on local teens, and force its removal. It wasn't personal, she told herself, just a necessary correction. As she shook the can, the hiss of paint echoed like a warning. She sprayed in broad, angry strokes, covering Daniel's name with jagged lines and crude words. The bench, once a symbol of reverence, now screamed with her defiance. By noon, the park was a crime scene. Neighbors gathered, their whispers sharp with outrage. Eleanor arrived, her steps slow, her face crumpling as she saw the desecration. She sank to her knees, clutching the bench, her sobs cutting through the crowd's murmurs. Karen, watching from a distance, felt a flicker of unease but brushed it aside. She'd file her complaint, the bench would be removed, and order would return. Enter Mia Delgado, an unexpected player in this unfolding drama. Mia, a 17-year-old artist who lived across from the park, was an outsider in Willow Creek's polished world. Her dyed purple hair and thrift store clothes made her a frequent target of Karen's disapproval. But Mia had a gift. She saw stories in the smallest details. That morning, she'd been sketching the park from her window, her pencil capturing the bench's quiet dignity. She'd also seen her furtive glances, her hurried steps, the glint of the spray can. Mia could have stayed silent. She'd learned to avoid Karen's wrath, but something about Eleanor's grief stirred her. She approached the crowd, her sketchbook clutched to her chest, and spoke up. "I saw who did this," she said, her voice trembling but firm. All eyes turned to her, including Karen's, whose face paled. Mia held up her sketch. A detailed drawing of Karen mid-act, the spray can unmistakable. The crowd gasped. Karen's denials came fast, her voice shrill, but the evidence was damning. The HOA convened an emergency meeting that evening. Karen, usually the one leading the charge, sat in the hot seat. Eleanor, still shaken, recounted what the bench meant to her, not just a memorial, but a lifeline to Daniel's memory. Mia's sketch was passed around, each neighbor studying it with growing disgust. Karen's defense crumbled. She claimed it was a misunderstanding, that she'd only meant to highlight the bench's disrepair. But the room saw through her. The vote was unanimous. a $5,000 fine for vandalism, and a permanent ban from all HOA parks. Karen's world unraveled. Her reputation, meticulously built, lay in tatters. Neighbors who once nodded politely now avoided her gaze. Her real estate business faltered as clients drifted away, wary of her newfound infamy. She retreated to her pristine home, its walls closing in like a cage of her own making. But the story didn't end there. A week later, Mia approached Eleanor with a proposal. She'd been working on something, a way to restore the bench, not just its surface, but its soul. Eleanor, hesitant but touched by Mia's sincerity, agreed. Mia spent days sanding away the paint, her hands steady as she carved new details into the wood. Poppies, Daniel's favorite flower, curling around his name. She sealed it with varnish, ensuring it would endure. When it was unveiled, the neighborhood gathered again, this time in awe. Eleanor wept, but her tears were different now, grateful, healing. Karen, barred from the park, watched from her window. The sight of the restored bench, now more beautiful than ever, twisted something inside her. She'd expected triumph, but all she felt was emptiness. She'd misjudged the community's heart, assuming rules trumped compassion. She'd underestimated Mia, whose quiet courage had shifted the narrative. And she'd forgotten Eleanor, whose grief had woven a bond stronger than any HOA regulation. Months passed. The bench became a gathering place, not just for Eleanor but for others sharing stories of loss and love. Mia's poppies inspired a community art project, with children painting stones to line the park's paths. Karen, meanwhile, faded into the background. Her fine was paid, but the ban remained a constant reminder of her misstep. She could have apologized, could have sought redemption, but pride held her back. She lived in Willow Creek, but it was no longer her home. The twist, though, came in a letter, slipped under Eleanor's door one winter night. And signed, it read, "I didn't know what the bench meant. I thought I was fixing things. I was wrong." Eleanor recognized the handwriting, Karen's, unmistakable from years of HOA notices. For a moment, she considered reaching out, offering forgiveness. But the letter felt hollow, a gesture too late to mend what was broken. Eleanor tucked it away, choosing to let the bench speak for her. The final blow came in spring. The HOA, inspired by Mia's act, renamed the park Harper Memorial Park. At the ceremony, Eleanor spoke of Daniel, of love that outlasts war, of a community that chooses healing over hate. Mia stood beside her, now a quiet hero. Karen wasn't there. Esht moved away, her house sold at a loss, her name a cautionary tale. As the crowd dispersed, Eleanor sat on the bench, her fingers tracing the poppies. She felt Daniel's presence, not in the wood, but in the community that had rallied around his memory. Mia, now a regular visitor, sketched nearby, her pencil capturing the park's new vibrancy. The bench, once a battleground, was now a Biakona reminder that even in the wake of cruelty, kindness could carve a deeper mark. But for Karen, the story ended in silence. She'd sought control and found chaos. She'd defaced a memorial and lost her place in the world that held it dear. The bench stood, unyielding, while she faded into a life of regret, her actions a wound that never fully healed. ND.